The morning sun painted the city in warm shades of gold as Barış Arduç stepped out of a quiet cafe, holding a fresh cup of coffee. It was one of those rare mornings when everything seemed peaceful. The streets were calm, the breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers, and the world felt full of possibilities. Across the street, Elçin Sangu was walking toward a nearby bookstore. She had promised herself that this day would be different. Instead of rushing through meetings and schedules, she wanted to enjoy every little moment. She smiled as she admired the colorful flowers displayed outside a small shop. At the same moment, a gentle wind swept through the street, carrying several pages from an open notebook that someone had accidentally dropped. The papers floated through the air like white butterflies. Without thinking, Barış hurried to catch the flying pages. At the same time, Elçin reached for the very last page before it touched the ground. They looked up. For a brief second, the busy city seemed to disappear. Their eyes met, and both smiled naturally. "Looks like we had the same idea," Barış said with a friendly laugh. Elçin handed him the page she had caught. "Or maybe we were simply in the right place at the right time." Together they gathered the remaining papers and returned them to their grateful owner. The elderly writer thanked them warmly before continuing on his way. Neither Barış nor Elçin expected the moment to leave such a lasting impression. "So," Barış said, "I think teamwork deserves a cup of coffee." Elçin smiled. "I was actually heading to a bookstore first." "Even better," Barış replied. "Books and coffee are a perfect combination." They walked side by side toward the bookstore, talking about their favorite novels, inspiring stories, and unforgettable characters. To their surprise, they shared similar tastes. Both loved stories that celebrated kindness, hope, and second chances. Inside the bookstore, shelves stretched from floor to ceiling. The peaceful atmosphere invited visitors to slow down and enjoy every page. Barış reached for a novel just as Elçin reached for the same one. They laughed. "It seems we keep making the same choices today," Elçin said. "Maybe that's a good sign." They spent nearly an hour exploring the shelves, recommending books to each other and sharing memories connected to certain stories. There was no pressure. No awkward silence. Everything felt effortless. When they finally left the bookstore, they found a small cafe nearby with outdoor seating surrounded by colorful flowers. The afternoon sun was warm but gentle. They ordered coffee and homemade desserts. Conversation flowed naturally. Barış spoke about how important family and loyal friends were in his life. Elçin shared how she believed every day offered a chance to learn something new. They laughed over funny childhood memories. They talked about travel dreams, favorite cities, peaceful beaches, mountain sunsets, and hidden cafes where time seemed to stand still. Hours passed without either of them noticing. As evening approached, soft lights began glowing along the streets. Musicians played relaxing melodies in the nearby square. The atmosphere felt magical without trying to be. Barış looked toward the colorful sky. "I haven't enjoyed a day like this in a long time." Elçin nodded. Sometimes the simplest days become the most unforgettable. A comfortable silence followed. Neither felt the need to fill every second with words. Instead, they simply enjoyed the moment. Before leaving, Barış noticed a small flower stand closing for the day. He bought 2 white daisies. He handed one to Elçin. "For today's unexpected friendship." She accepted it with a grateful smile. "I'll remember today every time I see a daisy." As they walked toward the nearby park, evening lights reflected beautifully across a quiet lake. Children played nearby while families enjoyed peaceful walks. Everything felt calm. At the center of the park stood an old wooden bridge. They stopped there, watching the gentle ripples across the water. "I believe every great story begins with a small moment," Elçin said softly. Barış smiled. Maybe today was one of those moments. The city lights slowly appeared one by one as night settled over the skyline. Eventually, it was time to head home. Neither wanted the conversation to end. So, Boris asked, "Would you like to meet again?" Elsin smiled without hesitation. "I'd like that." They exchanged contact information before saying goodbye. As Elsin walked away, she looked back for just a second. Boris happened to turn at the exact same moment. They both laughed from across the street before continuing in opposite directions. That evening, both found themselves thinking about the unexpected encounter. It hadn't been planned. It hadn't been dramatic. It had simply felt right. Before going to sleep, Elsin placed the white daisy inside one of the books she had purchased that day. Boris set his own daisy beside his favorite novel on a wooden shelf. Neither of them realized that this simple meeting would become the first page of a beautiful journey, one filled with shared dreams, meaningful conversations, unforgettable adventures, and countless moments that would bring them closer together. Sometimes love doesn't arrive with grand gestures or extraordinary events. Sometimes it begins with a smile, a shared kindness, and the feeling that meeting someone was exactly what the day had been waiting for. And for both of them, this was only the beginning. The next afternoon arrived with bright sunshine and a cool breeze drifting through the city. Boris reached the small cafe a few minutes early, carrying the novel he had purchased the previous day. He chose a quiet table by the window, wondering whether the easy conversation they had shared would continue just as naturally. A few moments later, Elsin walked through the door with a warm smile. "I hope I didn't keep you waiting." "Not at all," Boris replied. "I was just deciding which chapter to read first." She laughed as she took her seat across from him. "Maybe we'll end up recommending books to each other again." Their coffees arrived, and soon they found themselves talking about everything from favorite authors to places they hoped to visit one day. Every story seemed to lead to another, and every answer revealed another shared interest. After leaving the cafe, they wandered through a nearby art market filled with colorful paintings, handmade crafts, and cheerful musicians. Local artists greeted visitors with friendly smiles while children admired the bright displays. One artist invited them to write a single word on a community canvas that represented happiness. Boris wrote, "Hope." Elsin wrote, "Kindness." When they stepped back, they noticed their words were side by side. "What a coincidence," Elsin said. "Maybe not," Boris answered with a smile. "Perhaps those two always belong together." The afternoon passed peacefully as they explored every corner of the market. They sampled fresh pastries, listened to a violin performance, and admired paintings that captured beautiful landscapes. As the sun began to set, they reached a hill overlooking the city. Golden light stretched across the rooftops, creating a view neither of them would soon forget. "It's amazing how different everything looks from up here," Elsin whispered. Boris nodded. "Sometimes all we need is a new perspective." For a while, neither of them spoke. The silence felt comfortable, filled only with the gentle sound of the wind. Before they headed home, they promised to meet again the following weekend for another adventure. As they walked away in different directions, both carried the same quiet thought. Some friendships begin with chance. The strongest ones continue because two people choose, day after day, to keep walking toward the next chapter together.